Welcome to Telling the Tale, a podcast where I, Mitchell Farley Wolf, am your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dustin Jackson. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, Mitch. I'm here. I'm filled with a hot dish, and I'm ready to go.
Dustin, what do we do on this podcast?
We talk about Telltale Games, episodes of Telltale Games, I think.
Yeah, I love experimenting with how we get that across in the opening. Today, you did it.
I hope I'm not getting it confused with my other podcast.
No, this is the one. This is the Telltale one.
Okay, good.
Over the course of the entirety of this podcast, we will try to cover every single game that Telltale ever developed, which, of course, means that we need to cover their singular new IP. Telltale Texas Hold'em is technically an IP, but you can't really build off it.
Yeah, it's more just kind of a one-shot thing rather than a full thing.
Yeah.
And this one's a two-shot thing.
Nelson Tethers Puzzle Agent is its own game. It's its own world. It's Telltale from the ground up. It's nothing else.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was really looking forward to playing this. It's one of the few Telltale games that kind of slipped past me back in the day, but I've always kind of wanted to go back to it. I don't know why I never did. I guess just life sure. Getting in the way.
Yeah. I've played this first one. I've not played the second one.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. I remember being because this first one ends on a cliffhanger. And I remember being very hung up on ooh, what happens? And then I never learned it. So it's been 11 years. So I guess I wasn't so hung up on it that it impacted my life enough to play Puzzle Agent 2. But for a while, I was pretty wondery about it. And now we finally get to play it. So I'm really excited for next week. But Dustin, I can't tell if it's just because, hey, we played something that's not a point-and-click adventure game. But I was over the moon excited to play through these puzzles.
Yeah, it's something different. This is the first one since Telltale Texas. Isn't it interesting that the two that are their own IPs are the ones that are not point-and-click adventures?
Yeah. Telltale Games really just does two genres mostly. They do point-and-click adventures before Walking Dead, and they do narrative choice games after Walking Dead. And their two original IPs are very much neither of those things. Although they did sort of make a little bit of a home for themselves within poker later on. But this is wholly unique within their repertoire. Not wholly unique within video games as a whole, though. I think the immediate comparison that the gameplay of Nelson Tethers Puzzle Agent evokes is to Professor Layton. Have you played the Professor Layton games?
I have not, I'm sorry to say. But I know what they are. I've seen them. I've witnessed Professor Layton. They're
good. I've played the first, the original trilogy. There's two trilogies of Professor Layton games, just like how Star Wars was. I guess not how it is. But I played the original trilogy of that. I didn't keep playing. Mostly because it's kind of... I like the games, but they are all sort of the same at a point.
It's just puzzles upon puzzles.
Yeah, it's just puzzle on puzzle on puzzle, and the story that the game tells is also a mystery. And maybe this is a hot take, but I feel that the only good mystery in the Professor Layton series is the first game. Where other games in the series, it's what happened? Oh, well, here's the explanation. It was a gas leak. Oh, that's not a mystery.
It's nothing cool. Technically it was a mystery you solved, but it's not like there's a good end result to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, Thank you, Justin.
If that's how you feel, I'll stop making them.
I've been shouldering this burden for too long, and I'm glad that you're now understanding what I've been going through.
Yeah, I appreciate the constructive criticism. The next Professor Layton game will do away with all of that.
Yeah, and can you make this one a little less horny, please?
Well, we'll see.
Okay. So, do you want to describe the plot outline of this game? Actually, hang on. I'll give it to you, but first let's just cover a couple things.
Okay.
Release date, June 30th, 2010. I always write this down and I always forget to say it. The release date was June 30th, 2010, making this game just over 11 years old at the moment.
That's not too long ago in the grand scheme of things. Like, I feel like everything else has felt older than this.
Yeah, and I felt that same way playing the game too. Strong Bad and Season 2 of Sam & Max felt like you could see the age on them. And I can't tell if it's just because this game is so stylized, but Strong Bad is stylized too. I can't see the age on this as much.
I guess it's just because it's 2D rather than 3D. I think 2D animation and artwork just has a tendency to look less aged than 3D does.
Yeah, but
it's had the time to age.
A lot of it is 3D though.
Yeah, but it's stylized in a way that makes it look 2D. I didn't even realize a lot of those backgrounds were 3D for a long time. And when I did, I was like, whoa!
Yeah, that was my reaction too. I was like, whoa! That's how I was. It's based on the Grickle series of comics, although not in the same way that Bone is based on the Bone series of comics, where it literally adapts a story. Grickle is an absurdist, sort of surrealist comic that has no through lines with its plot. It's just a style. The thing that connects Grickle comics are just the artistic style. So this is a game in that style. It's hard to say whether you would consider that an adaptation or not. I would edge on saying no, it's not an adaptation.
Yeah, because it really is just kind of the art style to it. It would be no different from like if The Simpsons and Futurama were the same universe, which some argue it is, but you get it. Like,
yeah,
they're two separate things that exist that look the same, but they're not directly connected.
Yeah, I mean, they're not yellow, so I feel like they're not.
Yeah, but they had a crossover episode. They had an episode where they just go back in time to The Simpsons, and it's not played off as like an alternate universe or anything, because they like walk by New York from Futurama and they like see Fry's dog, and it's a mess. It sucks, but that.
Yeah, I can tell you hated it.
Yeah, it ain't great. I love Futurama and I love early Simpsons, but neither are here nor there. We're here to talk about Puzzle Agent.
Okay. So Grickle's made by Graham Annabelle. I feel like Grickle might be his name in some way, but the ick part is new. Graham Annabelle is an artist at Telltale. He's at the company. He's not like contracting or licensing or anything. He's at the company. In fact, I believe that Telltale Games on their website sold the collected works of Grickle as a book you could like buy for delivery at one point, even though they had no business in the creation of it.
It's kind of like Sam and Max at LucasArts, how Steve Purcell was already at LucasArts.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool.
And the designer of this game, the lead designer-director guy, was Mark Darren, who we've seen quite a bit of already.
We've seen him here and there.
We've seen him in Sam & Max. We've seen him in Strong Bad. He's really making the rounds. An important thing to note about being released in June 30th of 2010 is that we are now in the podcast committing our very first major time skip. We might do it again a couple times, but This is 2 years after the
Here's-
end of Strong Bad.
Here's to another lousy millennium.
Aw, I don't want one. Yeah, so this is 2 years after Strong Bad. In the meantime, between Strong Bad and this, there were things like Wallace and Gromit, and I think Sam and Max season 3. I'm not.
Monkey Island.
When was Monkey Island not
Monkey Island
2011?
Monkey Island was before Sam and Max season 3.
Okay, yeah. Then Monkey Island was before this. I don't know if Sam and Max season 3 was before this, actually, in retrospect. But having Monkey Island be before this is, I think, notable because Monkey Island felt like Telltale, and we will get to it when we get to it on the podcast, but it felt to me like Telltale finally got a real shot making like a big boy adventure game.
I think that's fair to say. Like, even season 2 of Sam and Max, it was still kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say low-key, but it did feel more, silly. You know, it is a more episodic, cartoony type game, but Tales of Monkey Island had kind of a big story to it.
Yeah, Monkey Island has always been very, at least compared to Sam and Max, I think a big difference in their tones is that Monkey Island might be more gameplay focused, where Sam and Max is about a world and a tone and things like that. Monkey Island certainly does have a very interesting world and tone, but it's also an adventure game in the genre through and through. It's focused on the puzzles. It's focused on what you do with the items and places you're given to work with. Sam and Max is about talking to people and embodying a character in a space.
Right.
So with Telltale getting to do a Monkey Island game, it felt like, wow, these people are really actually finally doing an adventure game that doesn't really need any excuses. Like Strong Bad's cool game is an adaptation of a children's cartoon on the internet. It doesn't need to be that hard. It just needs to tell stories.
Yeah.
And then Monkey Island finally did it. So this thing coming out, I feel like is almost them saying, okay, look, we did it. We did point and click adventure games. Now we're just gonna do what we've been thinking about. Just our next little endeavor. And
a nice little puzzle game.
It is cool. It's a cool game.
Yeah. I like it a lot.
I really like it. Now, Dustin, I apologize for cutting you off with that. Would you please give us the outline of the plot for this game?
I would love to. So we follow Nelson Tethers. He's sitting in his office.
Great office.
Doing his... Yeah, it's...
I love this office. I would die to have this office. This office is great.
It's great. I love it. But he is sent to... what's the name of the place he's sent to? I didn't write it down.
Scoggins,
that's it. To investigate, there was an accident at the eraser factory.
Yeah.
And so he's sent to look into it.
What is MN? What state is MN? Is that Minnesota?
Minnesota, yeah.
Okay. So Scoggins, Minnesota is the home to the eraser factory that makes all of the White House's erasers. And the White House is starting to maybe experience a little bit of an eraser shortage. So you need to go and investigate like what happened. What happened to this factory? Why aren't they making the president's erasers? Which is, I think, a delightfully Telltale conceit as to why the episode needs to begin.
Yeah, it's very it's a convoluted sort of story. Like there's a reason behind all of it. There's and it's like a motivation that you just wouldn't see in any other type of game.
Yeah, and this is I love these like convoluted ways to get an adventure started. Like, oh, the president doesn't have enough erasers. Ooh, we gotta figure that out.
We got to get on this right now.
That needs to be dealt with. Well, before that, though, you have a daydream. Nelson Tethers has a daydream on his desk that he's doing a crossword puzzle, and then an astronaut comes up to him and scrawls the word Scoggins across the crossword puzzle, and then opens his helmet and reveals something inside, and you don't see what's inside the astronaut helmet. Good vibes. Just great vibes from the get-go.
Yeah,
I don't know if
sounds
there's...
like something he's going to enjoy.
Yeah. I don't know if there's an intro to a Telltale episode that I like more than just this creepy astronaut writing a crossword puzzle. Or writing on a crossword puzzle. That might be my favorite opening of a Telltale episode so far. It's so good.
Wow. That's some high praise.
I like it. I like astronauts. Did you see the Inspiration 4 crew thing? Did you see that?
I did not.
The first civilian crew of astronauts went into orbit for a couple days, and they came back.
Oh, I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, one of them was only 29 years old. The youngest person ever to be in space.
That's younger than me, and I've never been in space.
It's a little older than me, so I still have some time, and I'll probably get around to it. Just, I have a couple years now instead of...
You got this whole podcast going on. So
yeah, I mean, I should be there. But, stuff comes up. I'll talk about NASA forever, though. I like space. I think something that's immediately apparent with this game is that it's just fun to look at.
Yeah, I love the style of it. It immediately makes me want to check out the Grickle comics.
Yeah, what's weird about it is that it is 2D, like the comics. So it's like Paper Mario, where the characters and important items are drawn as 2D sprites, but you have it against a 3D background. And
yeah, but they do a great job of making the backgrounds look 2D, like they fit in with the characters, which I guess is good practice for like Walking Dead coming up, where like everything's gonna have like outlines, and they really put in the work to make it look like illustrations.
Well, I thought about that with Strong Bad too, because everyone had outlines in that, and
Strong Bad's another good example.
That was their first example of like trying to mimic 2D art for a 3D game. Although that one still very obviously comes across that it is 3D.
Yeah.
And that's probably because they have to make the characters walk around. With Nelson Tethers, you don't have to have him walk around. He's just standing still in a place, and you can click on various items, and it like starts a new scene.
I wonder if this had come out before Strong Bad, if Strong Bad just would have been 2D animated.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it just would have looked just like the cartoons.
Well, it would be difficult because Strong Bad is still a game designed to have Strong Bad walk around on the screen. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like that in this game. Nelson Tethers cannot walk around. It's not a point and click. Nelson Tethers is just in a room, and then you click on some item in the room, but he doesn't go to it. And that difference is significant. Because if you had to have Nelson Tethers walk around, you couldn't just animate a walk cycle in 2D and just put that in 3D. That'll never look right. Mm-hmm. I mean, people do it. The game Demon Turf is coming out pretty soon, which does it. But, like, with that game, it's very clear what they're doing. They're not trying to trick you at all into thinking it's 2D, where this game kind of does.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Do you think it would work if the backgrounds, like, stayed static? Like, if you think about, like, old point-and-click LucasArts games, like the Monkey Island games, or, like, Curse of Monkey Island specifically, I think they could do it if, like, like where you're looking at it from doesn't move or anything. You just see it from the one static angle. So it looks 2D. I feel like they could have pulled it off like that, but it would have been a little tricky.
I think they could do it. I just think that it would involve developing a lot of new tech that this game doesn't have to think about.
Yeah, this feels like it's meant to be like a smaller kind of game, because it is just one thing, but it is longer than an average Telltale game episode.
Yeah, but weirdly not like by so much.
Yeah, you were telling me about it the other day, and I thought it was going to be like a lot longer, but no, it's only like a little bit.
Yeah, if the average, I don't know, 3 hours has been around where I've been playing most of the previous episodes we've talked about on the show, at least for like season 2 of Sam and Max and Strong Bad. If those were 3 hours, this is 4.
Yeah.
So really only like 1/3 longer. It's not that much longer. Although it was talked about in the news, in the gaming news, as being Telltale's first non-episodic game. Although that wasn't true because of Texas Hold'em and also CSI. But it was talked about like, hey, we're doing our own thing, and it's just one game. It's not episodes, and it's going to come out and be crazy. So much so that I'm reading this article from April the 23rd of 2010, so a couple months before the game originally came out. It was on joystick.com. Joystick with an IQ at the end. Joystick.
I remember Joystick.
It is now on Engadget.com because Joystick folded and all of its articles are on Engadget. It was written by R. Nelson and is entitled Scoggins Eraser Mystery Deepens as Telltale Delivers Erasers and iPods. The first paragraph of this article is, Telltale Games continued its teasing of what would appear to be its upcoming original IP called or related to the phrase Scoggins Erasers today by sending us a box filled with erasers and an iPod Touch labeled Made in Scoggins, Minnesota, contains Scoggins erasers and top secret. The package we received was open to reveal another small box marked top secret. Inside this, 10 large pink erasers which we removed, exposing an iPod Touch. That's a flex for the time. That, like, just sending various high profile gaming news outlets iPod Touches is not cheap. Those are multiple in 2010. That's like an expense.
I mean, nowadays when everyone has phones, it like iPod Touches don't seem like that big a deal, but at the time they were, a flex.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole computer. It's a whole computer you just sent someone.
I totally forgot that Puzzle Agent was on iOS.
Yeah, it was. I definitely did not play it there. I played it on PC.
Me neither.
Yeah. I don't want to. But
I thought about it. I looked on the App Store after I was done. Apparently, it looked like the first one is not up there. So maybe I got it wrong. Maybe it wasn't on iOS, but the second one is there.
Oh, interesting. I don't know why that would be the case. I think both of them are currently owned by the new Telltale.
Yeah.
Which is one of the few things that we've played so far that is, because Sam and Max is owned by Skunk Ape, and Strong Bad is owned by the new Telltale as well.
Yeah.
And Bone just folded. I don't think anyone owns it. I think it like returned to the artist, the comic creator.
Yeah, I feel like I would have expected the same thing to happen to Strong Bad, but I guess not. Oh, and especially Monkey Island now that Disney owns it.
Yeah, I think they just still have whatever they worked out with Disney or LucasArts in order to get Monkey Island going in the first place is probably just like people they individually know and can still work with, which is nice. That it's nice that they have, I guess this is extrapolation. So it's nice that they might have just like a person they can personally call about Monkey Island.
Yeah. I mean, either that or Disney's just easier to work with when it comes to these LucasArts properties. Like, maybe they just don't care that much. I mean, they did okay those remasters that Double Fine did for them. So maybe all Telltale had to do was, like, reach out and say, hey, we want to get Tales of Monkey Island back up. Is that cool? And then they said, yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, Disney's had such a hard time working with the Lucas brand for Star Wars, but for things like Monkey Island and Full Throttle and Grim Fandango and all the other ones that Double Fine would eventually take up, it seems that they're just sort of excited to have someone work with them. And if the only competition that makes sense for like who should work with it is the original creators, why not give it back to the original creators?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it seems weird that Disney's all right with it, but maybe that's just also financially the smartest move for them. Because it's not like Monkey Island's going to make money on its own, just under them.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, who cares? Just get it out there. Get us some more money.
Yeah. Right. So this iPod that they gave to Joystick said it had an FBI seal with the text Department of Puzzle Research on the lock screen, and then there was like some notes saved on it that said something is wrong in Scoggins, Minnesota, and it had like a Scoggins briefing on the calendar. And it had a video saved of a very funny video saved of a gnome, a Grickle gnome, just drawn onto a live action warehouse footage video.
I love that.
Yeah, it looks like scary, but also it's pretty silly looking. There's some photos in the apps, or the photo app has some like concept art with more gnomes and stuff. So what a fun little iPod. Now here's a weird thing though. This iPod was sent to Joystick. On the back of it, engraved, it says, "If found, do not sell to Gizmodo." which is a very different website than Joystick.
That's funny.
Which I think was, at the time, there might have been a leak incident at Gizmodo. And they're poking fun at that. But, like, you sent it to Joystick. You should engrave it with Joystick. Yeah. Anyway, that's a fun thing that they did.
That's so cool that they do it for a game like this. Like, if they did it for something like Sam & Max or Strong Bad, it would be cool. But the fact that it was done for this new original IP, I think, is a lot cooler.
Yeah, LucasArts always experimented with packaging and with marketing and things like that in a very fun and cool way that you don't see too often anymore, mostly because it's inefficient. Like, you can't possibly expect to make your money back, but you do make the game feel like a big event.
Yeah, you make it fun.
Yeah. Rare does that too sometimes, in a way that I almost forgot they did, because it had been so long since they did like one of their major tentpole adventure type games before Sea of Thieves, that when Sea of Thieves came out and they were putting all this like marketing that felt really expensive and significant. Do you remember the quest for the golden banana?
Yeah, I wanted to do it, but I was too busy at the time. But it sounded like a real fun thing.
I was doing it by texting some people my thoughts on some clues while I was the best man at a wedding. I was just texting our friends Jeff and Heil, like, oh, maybe it's a cipher. You gotta use a whatever. And I was just sort of like checking my phone, put it back in my pocket, give a ring out to someone.
Here you go. Anyway.
Yeah. So you're married anyway. These fucking bananas.
What a good story. That's probably my favorite story you've told.
Because it was the day Sea of Thieves came out, so I didn't get to play it for a few days after it came out, because I was at this wedding. But I could play the Quest for the Golden Banana, where they put out literally around the world. They hid clues. There was one in the beaches of Australia. There was one in the Florida Keys. There was one near Twycross, of course. And then, the world needed to work together in order to solve this larger puzzle.
That's so crazy that can just happen.
Right? Yeah.
Something like that would never happen, and yet there it is.
Yeah, and the people that solved it, the last part of it first, ended up getting a cosmetic in Sea of Thieves that would only be theirs forever. Only 4 people have it, I think, total.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And also they got a real actual golden banana.
Wow, jeez. Well, I'm glad the people at Joystick got an iPod Touch at least.
Yeah, that's similar. But yeah, Loom, when they were at LucasArts, Loom was mostly directed by Brian Moriarty, who never worked for Telltale. But the packaging on Loom is insane. Have you ever seen any of that stuff?
I haven't.
They had a cassette in there that was like a half-hour audio drama of backstory to the game.
That's crazy. I love that.
Yeah. And it came with this large cipher for the the copy protection that all of those games had that makes them impossible to ROM. Yeah, that stuff's just great. If you can do something actually very special and not just a marketing gimmick, pre-order bonuses get a special costume. I'm a sucker for that stuff. Really lovingly crafted packaging and stuff.
Same. It happens a lot less nowadays.
Yeah, the Telltale games were sort of the last living modern vestige of that. But then even toward the end, Telltale went mostly all digital with their stuff. Even though they did sometimes put out discs of the season. That was sort of the end of that. You don't get stuff like the dossiers for Sam & Max anymore.
Or the season DVDs that have cutscene reels, commentaries from the developers on them, all sorts of crap on those.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get any of that. But you definitely don't get it with Nelson Tethers Puzzle Agent.
Definitely
which
not.
I thought definitely wouldn't have had a physical release. A game this small in 2010, we're already past the indie boom, so people understand digital games.
Yeah.
No, it got a physical release.
It did get a physical release?
It got a CD-ROM release.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I wonder what's on it other than the game. I bet it's just the game, but
probably. That's one of those things that there's really no reason to have it, but it would be cool just because it's just the one-shot Telltale thing.
We've talked for over a half hour without actually talking about the plot of the game, but
I said a little bit.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so the Eraser Factory. You got to go check out that, and then you get to Scoggins, and it's a real Fargo-esque Twin Peaks type of situation. It's a mysterious town, mysterious folks.
Covered in snow.
They've got a lot of previously established traditions with the townsfolk, and you, a hotshot FBI agent, need to go in there and wheedle out what's actually really happening and who's on what team. How much do the townsfolk actually know in regards to what happened at the factory. You go to the factory, you find out there was an explosion, and that the foreman there, Eric Davner?
Yeah.
Is his name Eric?
I
know his last name's Davner.
Yeah, I remember the Davner part. Maybe it's not Eric. Or maybe it is.
Yeah, I think I called him Eric because he's a foreman, Eric Foreman from that '70s show. But he wasn't found after the explosion. So the assumption for most of the episode is like, oh, this guy died in this explosion. There's something going on here that is significant. There's an attempted murder, perhaps. There's foul play on behalf of some of the townsfolks. And as you find out throughout the episode,
Isaac Davner.
You're right. You're totally right.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's Isaac. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad you did. Throughout the episode, you get more and more clues that there's this group of spirits that live in the forest called the Hidden People. They're little gnomes. They're like red gnome people. And they are quasi-worshipped or feared by some of the more Nordic heritage respecting townsfolk. They have like a cultish religion about
like
it.
Bjorn.
Bjorn is in there. Glory is in there.
I was this close to saying Bjork.
Like Bjork is there. Bjork makes a guest appearance.
That'd be great.
That would be awesome. And it turns into like a big whodunit. When the guy that I think the people that did do it tried to pin it on, Mike Lobb, was found to be innocent. It became more mysterious, and then all of a sudden, you're realizing that you, Nelson Tethers, are actively being tricked by the sheriff who's guiding you around, who seems to have been in on it in some way. And Isaac Davner is not dead. He's just being held captive in the factory. He's still in there. By the Hidden People.
You gotta get him out of there.
And every step of the way, every time you talk to a new person or look at a new item, you need to do a puzzle. I think they've looped the puzzle gameplay into the narrative by explaining that, well, Nelson Tethers is a puzzle agent of the FBI. His department is the Bureau of Puzzle Research. And B, the Hidden People of Scoggins, Minnesota are like puzzle fiends. They make people want to do puzzles.
I love doing puzzles even without this.
Yeah, I love doing puzzles without this. Which makes me wonder, am I being impacted by the Hidden People as is?
Oh my goodness. That's the real mystery.
Yeah, it's something to think about, something to chew on. There's a lot of like bending over backwards in the story in order to make sense that you are solving all of these puzzles, which is fine.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it works. It's clear that it's contrived, but I think it wears that on its sleeve. It's okay with that.
Yeah, it not doing it in like a taking the piss out of itself kind of way. It's not like making fun of the fact that you're doing all these puzzles. But it's just kind of the way things are in this world.
Yeah. There's a moment where you are being threatened with the sheriff's gun. He's about to shoot you, and then he notices a like a crossword hanging out of your pocket that you were solving earlier that day. And Nelson Tethers, who is good at puzzles and likes them, but just likes them, is able to throw the crossword away. The sheriff, who's been, I guess, influenced by the hidden people, is unable to not just leap for this puzzle and be distracted by it long enough for Nelson to escape the room they're in.
He is all over that crossword puzzle. And they don't really spell it out. They kind of leave it up to you to figure out that this town, these people, they love them some puzzles.
They love them. They love them some puzzling. This game has 37 puzzles in it, which is...
That's a lot.
Well, I was going to say it's not, actually.
Oh.
Okay, but we can... Maybe you can talk about that. You think that's a lot?
I think it's a lot just when you consider other Telltale games. I guess it's not when you think about like this as its own thing.
Yeah.
Especially since the puzzles vary in difficulty so much.
Yeah, I think
some puzzles are more difficult than others, but some are pretty easy.
A iPod Touch delivering game like this, you know, that quality of game that we're all familiar with, iPod Touch quality, you'd think that it would have more in it, sort of. If it's its own game, it's not an episode of a thing. It was not clear if they would do Puzzle Agent 2 that they were putting this much marketing into. It did seem like a big deal at the time. It wasn't like a small one of their games. It was the next one of their Telltale games.
Right.
That it seems very small to me. Like maybe I'm sure it's not actually this, but I could imagine some like ill-tempered forum members or something saying that Telltale had forgotten how to make a full-length game and not an episode of something at the time. Something mean like that.
Something real mean.
Something just real spicy.
You read that and you go,
yeah. Telltale forgot what a video game is? It's rude.
Yeah, I guess, like, back in the day, I already said I didn't play it when it came out, but back then it still kind of felt like a smaller game to me anyway, and I think that's kind of what I went into it thinking this time, too, so maybe it just didn't bother. Maybe I was expecting it to just be even smaller. But from the way you describe it with like the marketing and the push they did for it, maybe they were kind of pushing it as this bigger sort of thing. But to me, it always came across as a smaller thing. But from the outside looking in,
yeah, I mean, it was smaller for sure than things like the new season of Sam and Max, the new Monkey Island. Those things are bigger, definitely.
Yeah.
Those things were bigger at the time. And are actually bigger, so that makes sense. But in terms of like, how much are we gonna promote this Wallace and Gromit game versus this? It's about on the level.
Yeah,
it's about that, and that was 4 episodes of a point-and-click adventure game, and this is one game that is maybe the length of 1.5 of these, but a little less than that, even. 1.5 episodes.
I think this world and these characters are so charming. Like, there's just something about the way they look, the way they sound. This is just a charming game.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think it helps that the subject matter is like, it's kind of heavy. You have like murders and stuff, or supposed murders and conspiracies and stuff, but it feels like it's not small, but like just the setting, just these characters, just the way it is feels very, I don't know if cozy is the right word I'm looking for. But
I feel that though. It is kind of cozy.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is the setting, just the I've always liked this sort of snowy landscape, the kind that's very soft, very, like, you have very muted purples for the sky. It feels like it's winter, but not like the coldest winter.
Right. It does feel cold, but it's cold in a way that, like, there's a lodge to stay in. There's stuff to do. There's ways to warm yourself up. Twin Peaks is probably my favorite show of all time.
Wow.
And the story of this game is basically a parody of Twin Peaks. Down to FBI agent comes to small town to investigate mystery that turns out to be supernatural, and you're accompanied by the sheriff for a bit. The Twin Peaks sheriff is not a bad guy like the sheriff in this game is.
I love the voice of this sheriff. I didn't look up who did his voice.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
he kind of talks a little like this. Like it's not really an accent. I feel like other characters have stronger accents, but it is definitely a very unique sound.
Well, it's a Fargo accent, but it's it's unique. It's a unique idea. He's also really condescending to you all the time, making fun of, like, your college degrees and everything else that people in this small northern town probably wouldn't have had, I guess.
We're not like you city folk.
Now, Mr. Tethers, we're not fancy like you, and I guess that's why you make the big bucks, huh?
That's so condescending.
Yeah.
Like it's like a compliment, but in a way that you can't enjoy it as a compliment.
Yeah. And it turns out, the reason he's shitty is because they're gearing him up to be the bad guy, or at least one of the bad guys. Yeah, I guess, how much do we want to go over specifics of what happens?
We can go into some specifics. I mean, I feel like we kind of have to do a little bit.
Sure. Okay. So Davner's wife is Glory, who is the waitress at the diner that is open pretty much all day and is a weird central hub of single men in the area, it seems.
I like how all of the guys look exactly the same.
Yeah, all of the guys who aren't like you, the sheriff, or an interesting named character wear the same blue coat and hat.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of I don't know how much I want to get into this, but you know how there's a lot of things that are like all the men get to have crazy out there designs, but all the ladies have to be very similar. They have to be very, like, conventionally attractive.
Yeah.
This is kind of the opposite, where, like, all of the guys kind of have the same base model, and then all of the females, which is only like a couple, but still they all have very unique designs.
Yeah, I don't know how progressive it is if the pool is only two. There's only two.
I'm not saying there was like any sort of like, I don't know if it was done on purpose or anything. It's just kind of funny how it worked out.
So it turns out that Glory is part of this basically fraternal brotherhood of hidden people believers, and they sacrificed Isaac Davner, her husband, as an offering to the hidden people in order to sedate them.
Glory is very interesting to me because, like, she's on board. She's helping this happen, but, like, you can tell she doesn't want it to happen. She's very apologetic for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, maybe it's like paying for a medical procedure where it's like, man, this is so much money, but it's got to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
She has to sacrifice her husband to the hidden people. Of course you have to. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens with her, since it doesn't really wrap up things with her.
No, she tries to kill you. She tricks you into entering a like a lake top fishing house, and then cuts the ice below you out
With a chainsaw.
with a chainsaw.
How crazy is that?
It's pretty crazy. Here's the thing, though. It would float. Like, why
Maybe
wouldn't
it's
that
one of
float?
those-
The ice was already floating on top. Why would it start not floating?
Maybe it was one of them non-floating ones.
One of those.
Yeah.
And also, you're telling me that they built this house in the last single season? Like, they built it on top of ice already?
Yeah.
Do you know what's going to happen to that house?
That's not a good place.
It
for
will
a
at
little
one point
house.
not be frozen over. The house will just sink. There's a lot to think about with this house that falls into the ice situation.
That never once occurred to me. Like, yeah, wow, yeah. What were they thinking? What's going to happen after the winter? Maybe they just needed it for the one winter.
Now there are some times I know of that they will put a house like that out on a lake, but it's like on a floater thing. So when the lake unfreezes, the house is actually still floating there on the lake. And if it's that, then it should just still float. It's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to me that this happened.
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up at all. This is just a house that you are in danger of sinking within that should absolutely float 100%. And
Mitch, that's why you get paid the big bucks. These sort of things occur to you. It never once occurred to me, and you just ruined the game for me. That's why you're in charge.
that's why you get paid the big bucks, Mr. Tethers. I've got just sort of a smattering of notes here before we head into segments.
Same.
Yeah, I've noticed that every puzzle you get, for every submission that you turn in, it tells you how many tax dollars were spent on you solving that, which is pretty silly because you just sort of thought about it for a second. It shouldn't be.
It was just some of these puzzles are super easy, and you spend so many tax dollars.
Every submission costs $75,642.98.
Wow, there's no difference in value to these puzzles either.
Yeah, well, if you try a bunch of submissions and it's wrong the first few times, you can really rack up some money. I found out, it tells you at the end of the game, that my total taxpayer cost altogether was $3,433,934.08.
That's a lot of money, Mitch. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
It's a lot of money, but if we divide that number, let's do some quick math. 3403934.08 divided by the cost per attempt, which is 75642.98, we get that I did an average I did a total of 45 attempts throughout the game.
Wow.
And that's 45 divided by, we're going to keep going with the math, 37, because there are 37 puzzles in the game. It looks like I did an average of 1.2 attempts on every puzzle.
That's not too bad.
I don't think it's too bad. It's mainly because there was one puzzle that was I feel that it was explained poorly.
Which one?
It was called the Maw of Madness. It's where you're trying to connect some electricity wiring so that you can reach the psyche of this crazed guy who just talked to a gnome outside of the hotel you're staying at.
Right.
And the way it goes is like you're sending out some electrical information, and it needs to like go around a grid and end up at the right spot. And it to me did not clearly explain that every spot needed to be filled with a thing. It did say it in its defense. It did say that, but it didn't say it in a way that I understood.
I feel that. Like, it did explain it, but it didn't explain it as well as it could have.
Yeah, so I kept trying to get the electricity to go to the place, and it would have gone to the place, but I didn't fill up every spot. I did it. You could say I did it more efficiently than the puzzle desired of me.
Mitch really talking himself up.
Really talking myself up.
Better. I did it better than they expected.
Yeah, if you think about it, I wasn't wrong.
I don't want to say I'm a puzzle master, but kind of.
Yeah, there was another puzzle that was just sort of hard for me that wasn't bad. It was a fine puzzle. But I actually don't think I took too many attempts at this because I just didn't submit it because I wasn't sure about it for a while. With the fish splitting streams. Remember that one?
Yes, I that one took me a bit too.
Yeah, there's like some fish, and every time they reach a fork in a stream, they're going to a river. They split up evenly. Ooh, excuse me.
That's okay.
They split up evenly. And you need to get exactly a certain number of fish to the river. But there's 2 marshes that they pass, and one of the marshes has fish-eating predators in it. And one of them does it, but you don't know which one. So, like, you need to math out, like, how could it be exactly 16 fish getting to the river, no matter which marsh had the predators in it. It's a tough math problem. It's like a weirdly hard math problem in the middle of this game.
Yes, I also had trouble with that one.
Yeah.
There was one puzzle in particular that I felt like was kind of unfair. I don't know if it's I don't know if I'm being too harsh on it, but I didn't like it.
Okay.
And the thing is, the puzzle itself isn't that hard. It's just one of those ones where you kind of have to fit shapes together. It's when you're doing the master gear, when you have to split up the 3 gears into the one big gear.
Oh, okay.
But my problem with it is, up until then, any sort of game where you're kind of fitting things together, everything has like been designed to fit perfectly together. But in this one, you have gaps in the middle of these pieces. So, like, I don't know. To me, it felt a little misleading just because up until that point, those puzzles have been fairly straightforward. But then this one's like, you can fit them together, but it doesn't need to be like a completely full thing. You just have to get a shape. And when I was doing it, I was like, no, it has to be like a full gear shape. You can't just have gaps in the middle of the shapes. They gotta all fit like a puzzle.
Yeah. I didn't have this problem with that particular puzzle, but I feel your meaning.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's not like it's a hard puzzle, so I'm not that upset about it. But that was like the one where I was like, well, that's a little... I feel like could have worked a little better.
Gotcha. There's a moment where they do sort of make fun of the fact that they're doing all these puzzles and not take it seriously, where the sheriff, before he is revealed to be a bad guy, gives you some surveillance footage from the factory and says, no, these photos were taken with people walking out of the factory. And now if we can just figure out which one was taken last, we can find out who would know about the explosion at the factory. I mixed up the photos so we can put them back in the right order. And Nelson Tethers goes, why? That's evidence. And the sheriff goes, oh, you know how it is. Which is good.
These are all great characters. I enjoy them a lot.
Yeah, really good characters. I want to see more of the sheriff. I want to see more Glory. I definitely want to see more just Nelson Tethers. Nelson Tethers himself is great.
Yeah, I love him. He's a great main character to follow. He is kind of an everyman, kind of meant to be the straight man to the craziness around him, but he really works with it.
Yeah, but he's also like, if the world around him wasn't so crazy, he would stand out, I think, for being very, like, ultra reserved and nerdy with his puzzles.
Yeah.
Like, nerdy in an improbable way with his puzzles. I wanted to talk about the final puzzle in the game. It's sort of the final boss. It's called Hydraulic Headache, and it involves programming a list of movements for 3 presses that bring them to where they need to be. But the thing is, if you say up, all 3 of them move up at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought this was a really easy final boss, which
I
was a
agree.
little disappointing.
I agree. I thought all of these, like, so you do 3 puzzles when you get into the Eraser Factory, and I felt like all of them were pretty easy.
Yeah.
But that one in particular. But I liked it as a puzzle. I felt good that I figured it out. It just didn't take as long as some other puzzles. But I was like, yeah, I'm good at moving these platforms.
Yeah, I felt like that fish one could have been the final boss of the game. That one's tough. That one is like an involved thing.
Imagine the final boss being about fish going through streams.
Yeah. I guess it needs to be the hydraulic press one because that's what you walk on. It's an in-fiction puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving
I guess
them
one
across
way to
the
look
warehouse.
at it. I guess one way to look at it is less that one puzzle is the final boss, but more like all 3 of these puzzles together are like as a gauntlet kind of a final boss.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's not like I would say any of those 3 are that hard.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not. Even together, it's not like they compound or anything. They're all sort of just pretty quick.
Yeah. I guess that's part of the problem where like the puzzles just vary in difficulty across the board. It would feel a little better if they like kind of went easiest to hardest, but I guess that's really hard to do when you have to fit it in with a narrative. So, harder than it sounds, I guess.
Yeah, the Professor Layton games, not only is each one of them so much bigger than Puzzle Agent with hundreds of puzzles. But I think the difficulty curve is better. I think on the whole, I would be forced to say that Professor Layton is better, but like I like the tone of this game so much more than I like the tone of Professor Layton. It's so fun, and the art style is so charming.
Yeah, I feel like at least for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but I see a lot of people online saying like, not for these adventure games, but just for games in general, that the gameplay is the most important part, and that's all that matters. The rest is just like frosting. But I don't think that's true. I think you need everything else to make a good package overall. Like, if this game had like the best puzzles ever made, but just like no window dressing, no charming characters or setting, I wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I think
I don't consider myself a big puzzle man. And I feel like if this game were just the puzzles and didn't have that nice art style and characters and story, I would not be as into it as I am, and I wouldn't want to talk about it with you here right now.
Uh-oh.
I'd be a bit miffed that I had to take time out of my day to talk about this puzzle game with you, but I'm not, because I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm glad I haven't miffed you.
You're welcome.
That's a weird response to that, but yeah, I think that if there is truth to the idea of gameplay mattering more, it's more complicated than that. I think it gets incorrectly peddled around because there's a misconception of what gameplay is that I think is too narrow. Like game, yeah, I think it is definitely true that gameplay matters the most, and everything else should fall in line after that. But that would require that you really consider what is gameplay. And a lot of the times they're just people online that maybe don't know what they're talking about a little bit. Are
my
quick
example,
to just say that it's mechanics, which is not what gameplay is.
Yeah, the example I bring up are the new Super Mario Brothers games. Like, when you play them, they're fun. They're fun little games. I could not be less interested in playing them. I can get games that are just as fun with way more interesting characters and settings, like, the Donkey Kong Country games, etc., etc. So I like that. I feel like I would enjoy this one more than Professor Layton as a whole. I haven't played Professor Layton, so I can't say. But just going off of what I see of it, I feel like I enjoy Puzzle Agent more. Even if gameplay-wise it maybe doesn't quite match up.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of great characters and wacky stuff in Professor Layton as well.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to shrug it off just right now. I'm just going off of what I know of each right now.
Yeah, for me...
But I could love them.
Nelson Tethers has really targeted, like, things I care about. Like, the idea of a Twin Peaks-esque mystery and these kinds of, like, snowy American North towns and... Also, puzzles themselves, I am a puzzle guy, I would say. I like puzzles a lot. And all the puzzles here are at least interesting. I don't think any of them are actually fully bad. Whereas Professor Layton, in its 200-ish puzzles per game, has many bad puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
It is...
I guess that's something good you can say. Like, if it has fewer puzzles, that's less chances of having bad ones.
There's one puzzle I always think about that I think is in Professor Layton and the Diabolical Box that asks you, which of these coats does Professor Layton want to wear today? And it shows like 4 different coats.
Jinkies, what a mystery.
Yeah, and like, if you're actually trying to solve it like a puzzle, and like you think about it in a logical puzzle-ish way, you will not get there because they're just fucking coats. Like, I don't know what he wants. But it turns out the answer is the one whose hanger looks a little bit like a question mark. Because he likes questions.
Of course.
Totes ob.
Why didn't I think of that?
I should have thought about it. I hated it. I hate that puzzle. And like 90% of the game is good puzzles, I would say. Like, they're at least things that make sense, and once you find the answer, you can like check your work and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I would do if I
bad.
did that puzzle? If I made that puzzle?
What would you do?
I would present it like a real puzzle, like have it be like something you have to do, like you really have to think about it. But then you can just pick any of them. Who cares? It's a code.
Yeah, that's good.
You win no matter what you pick.
Yeah, I mean, but I think also the puzzles in Professor Layton, like the highs are higher than this.
Okay.
The more complicated ones where you really need to like follow a long set of logic, are more rewarding, or at least feel more rewarding than these. Most of the time. Oh, you know what was my favorite puzzle in the game? I actually do have one. I thought about it.
What is it?
My favorite puzzle was the one where there's 4 contestants in an arm wrestling tournament. And they
I like that one.
They all have one thing to say, and you need to figure out who won the tournament. And it's 2 people that seem like they lost and 2 people that seem like they won. But if you actually like map out the bracket, you can find out that one person must have been beaten by someone who was also beaten, and then from that you can find out that only one person would have played 3 games and won.
Yeah. I like that one a lot. I didn't do all of the optional ones. I feel like I did most of them, but I think there were some I missed, but that one I definitely did.
Yeah, that one was good. So
what's funny is my favorite puzzle is also an optional one. And it's not even like that good a puzzle. Like, I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, is that my favorite? But it was the one where I felt the most, aha, I got it.
Which one is that?
It's the one with all the people at the restaurant. You have to decide who gets what.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's not the best puzzle ever made, but when I figured it out, I was like, yes, now eat.
That one is great just because you see 6 people designed to look like food.
Yeah, that's great. That's like the one time you get other characters that look totally different, which is very cool.
Yeah. I like the onion guy the most. The guy whose head was just an onion.
I like the fish woman.
Fish woman's good. Yeah. That's about where I'm at for notes.
Let me see. Let me look through my notes and see if I have anything else. I will say this game really leaves you wanting more. There's so many loose ends that, like you solved the mystery at the eraser factory, but there's still what happened with Isaac? What about Glory? Etc. Etc. It has me really chomping at the bit to get to the next one.
I hope that the next one is an intended end to the story. We've been burned like bone before.
You want this to be an actual ending rather than just ending because they didn't make more.
Well, yeah, because it seems like with this, there's definitely an intention that they would come back and make another one.
Yeah.
And I hope to not see that intention in Puzzle Agent 2, because of course they did not.
Yeah, I wonder if like they went in knowing this was going to be like one story split up into 2 parts.
Yeah, because there is just an unfortunate trend within Telltale Games of thinking that they're going to make more stuff and then never doing it. And now they can't.
Yeah. I wonder if they felt a little more sure about this one, like maybe it was more of a low budget project sort of thing than the others. I mean, I'm sure it was, since it's just one small game compared to a big season. Yeah. So maybe they went in thinking, even if this first episode doesn't sell well, we should still be good enough to put out a second one.
What do you think the odds are that new Telltale finishes The Wolf Among Us 2 while we're doing this podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. We haven't heard much about that ever since the announcement. I'm gonna say it will be out before we finish this show.
Okay. If it starts as we're still doing the show, we will cover it live, I think, is what we should do.
Woo! I like that.
We should interrupt what we're doing to do the monthly Wolf Among Us 2 episode.
How about this? Once they announce a release date for it, we can jump right into doing the first season, and then we'll have already done that before the second season comes out.
Yeah, great. That sounds good.
Nice. Glad I thought of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. The thing with that is that they announced it in E3 of 2019. The last E3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the last real E3. And they've put out some tweets saying that they were, of course, very negatively impacted by COVID, like everyone else, which is super understandable.
Mm.
But, and this is rude, but it's super understandable. But we're coming up on the 2 years of COVID, so that's still 2 years. Like, if it's 2 years of slow work, that's like still 2 years of work, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, even if it was set back by COVID, think about how all these other Telltale games released. I feel like, given how many more episodes of this show we have to do, and how much time they've already had to work on this, I would think it's a safe bet that it will be out before this show is finished.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm making some assumptions on their work environment, which I don't know.
Yeah, it's totally possible that we have no idea what we're talking about, and this game is going to take a lot longer. I'm just going by what I would assume, and am totally open to being an incorrect dummy.
Yeah, maybe everyone at New Telltale is only there like as a second job.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's not the case. That would be difficult.
Yeah, especially during COVID times.
Yeah, but I guess maybe it would be easier during COVID times to have an excuse to ignore your second job of saying like, hey, you know what? I just didn't do it this week. Didn't do the work. And everyone else in the office would be like, yeah, that tracks. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I wish I could say that. Just didn't feel like it. Maybe tomorrow.
Did not do it. Could not have gotten. It was impossible. Like, when would I have done it? You've seen me the whole time. Yeah, but I would wager we're gonna see it at least announced in 2022. I know that they've got like a way scaled back skeleton crew of developers and were affected by COVID and are trying to... They said this time that they're trying to finish all the episodes before they release even the first episode, so they don't have to crunch.
It's still going to be episodic.
It's still going to be episodic, but it's not going to be developed... Like most of the Telltale games, they would be developing the last few episodes when the first episode comes out. So like they're still working on developing through the release schedule of it. And New Telltale has come out and said that has always led to crunch in the in-between months of episodes, like every single time they've ever done it. So they're not going to do it this time. They are going to finish the entire game, then release episode 1. And I think they're still going to like wait a month between episodes, but it's going to be considerably more
connected,
healthy,
I guess. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Everyone wins that way.
Yeah, I guess the only benefit to the other way is that like you can react to how people react to the game as it's coming out. But that like how valuable is that now?
Yeah, I mean, they said specifically that they did that with Walking Dead. They would see how people would react to characters and then write the next episode based on people's reactions. But like, I don't know. That's a neat little novelty, but I don't need it to enjoy a game.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can especially backfire too, because like if you are... Imagine if the Vidalectrix games in Strong Bad were really poorly received. And then the 5th episode of the game is like all about it, and then you just know it's coming as the developer, and then every month people keep talking about how shitty the Vidalectrix games are.
And you're just like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, in that case, I would want to not be able to react. I wish I didn't. I wish it was impossible for me to change anything, because now I would be like encouraged to work harder to somehow write an entirely new episode 5 in the 4 months between episode 1 and 5.
Yeah. Don't worry, Telltale. We understand.
Any other notes?
I think that's all I got other than our segments.
Okay, so this week, as the game in question doesn't really work with some of our segments, we've changed up our segments. Now we're only doing 2. We're only doing our weekly guy and our unweekly guy and our golden moment. So let's start with the weekly guy. Dustin, who's your weekly guy?
My weekly guy. This is an interesting one, Mitchell, because I have a lot to say about this weekly choice. My choice is the owner of the inn, Martha Garrett.
Absolutely knew it. That is the most predictable choice in the history of this show.
I'm sorry.
No, say their name. I think I cut you off from saying the name.
Martha Garrett, the owner of... What's the name of the inn again? It's like on the tip of my tongue.
I couldn't remember it. I don't remember the hotel's name.
That's fine. It's the inn. You get it.
Yeah, and she goes by Ma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great. I love her voice.
Yeah, she's got a great voice. She... Can I say why I knew that, or is that weird?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mitch.
I knew that you would pick
Air
that.
out my dirty laundry.
You have made it extremely well known in the time that I've known you that you have a deep proclivity to a very certain style of mom.
Yeah, I have it written down in my notes. Martha Garrett is 100% my cup of tea.
A very very round, jubilant maid type person is.
That's a good way of describing it.
I think the peak of it is that one like assistant to the family in Brave.
Oh yeah, she.
Which is fantastic. I love that you have this, but it's so predictable.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I know. There was a time where I'm sorry this is getting more into Dustin's personal tastes in ladies. This doesn't normally come up. But there was a time when me and my roommates were all watching. Mitch, you're aware of the show BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
And you've seen the last season.
I've seen half of the last season. I actually have not finished the show.
Oh, well then maybe I won't spoil it. Maybe I'll leave that a little mystery.
Is there a Dustin character in it?
Kind of.
Okay. Kind of. So it doesn't quite flip all your whistles. All your whistles? Yeah, that's a phrase. We'll do that.
Flip all my whistles.
Yeah, they were upside down and you flipped them.
Yep, I got your whistles pointing the way they should be. But yeah, she's great. She has the accent, which I love. She's the kind of person who's always like, oh yeah, no, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which is how everyone sounds. But when you pair it with the rest of her, I'm like, yeah, she was my weekly guy before I left that room.
Yeah, I know.
But Mitch, who's your weekly guy? Because there's so many good weekly guys to have in this game.
So I was back and forth. I wrote something down, but then even as I was recording it just now, I crossed it out and wrote another one, but then I crossed that out and wrote the first one again.
Well, this one was down to the wire.
Down to the wire. I'll tell you who the contestants are, and maybe you can help me choose. So one of them is the one other woman in the town of Scoggins, Glory. I really like how deep and convoluted her relationship with her husband is. How she cultishly worships these hidden people, and it's of her thought process that she needs to sacrifice him even though it will emotionally destroy her, and she's dealing with that all in the episode, and I think that is a very fascinating character.
Yeah, I think she's very interesting. She's the one I'm most looking forward to kind of learning more about in 2. Potentially, if they do. I feel like they would, but I don't know. I don't know at this point. But yeah, she's great. She's interesting, but every time she talked, all I heard was Clementine from The Walking Dead.
Oh, is that the... Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she's Clementine. Also, Girl Stinky from Sam and Max.
You have a much better ear for voice actors than I do.
Thank you. Yeah, even when an actor or actress is doing different roles, usually you can hear some sort of similarity in their voice. I think there was one other character I could pinpoint in this episode. I could be wrong, but I think the sheriff is Roger Jackson, who is a regular Telltale voice.
Could be.
He's like the guy who does Mojo Jojo, etc., etc.
The sheriff and Mojo Jojo. That's an interesting similarity.
But who's your other one?
The other one is Nelson Tethers himself. I really like Nelson Tethers. The idea of a puzzle agent is immediately arresting to me. I want to be that so much.
It has a lot of potential too. That's just I feel like that's a role you give a character when you're like, okay, well now we can just use him for any sort of puzzle we want.
Yeah, there could be an expanded universe of puzzle agent games where he goes to different towns. I don't think that is the case. I think that Puzzle Agent 2 is a direct follow up to this story. But they could have done that.
Yeah, that's very interesting because even though they are 2 separate games, it really does feel like this first episode is just half of the story. So
Yeah.
like going into 2, I don't feel like it's gonna feel like kind of a ripoff that we're just in the same areas. It's gonna feel like, okay, well now I get to play the rest, the part 2.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the idea of being a puzzle agent is so tempting that like I wish that was a thing in real life that I could be. Just someone who does puzzles in a basement office in the FBI, and no one like remembers that my office is down there, so people don't talk to me, and I could just that's the job. What a wonderful
you can
job.
Just do your puzzles.
Yeah, maybe you even make some puzzles in your downtime. You'll have a lot of it.
Yeah, that actually is a good idea, because like it's a role that's very specific, so they still need you around, but it's not so big time that you're going to be doing a lot of it. So you'll have job security for a job where you're just doing puzzles. Just whenever they need you, they'll call you up.
Do you have an unweekly guy?
It's hard because they're all so nice and charming.
Yeah.
But for weekly unguy, I think I'm going to say... Well, why don't you go first? Let's flip-flop. I've gone first. I went first the last time. You go first for weekly unguy.
Yeah, I'm having a real difficult time with it as well. I think my weekly unguy is, for lack of anyone better, it's Mr. Scruffman, who is a very fun character who goes around fixing stuff in the town, but just nothing is developed with Mr. Scruffman.
I had a feeling he was going to be a bigger part of the story, and he just isn't. But I guess that's fine. You just need to have some characters that are just there to kind of further things along in small ways. Yeah,
because if you don't have anyone else of note, then just like pinning it on the people that did it is too easy, because there's no one else remaining. There's not so many characters in this game. But Mr. Scruffman is just... he's the only character in the game that I feel is a real missed opportunity. Everything else feels all right.
Yeah, because like there's lots of people in the diner that have names and are smaller parts, but you just see them and they're just the people at the diner.
Yeah,
it feels like Mr. Scruffman they wanted to be one of these big main characters in this story, and he just doesn't do anything.
I feel weird saying that he's the unweekly guy though, because I do like him. He's great. Fun.
He's fun.
But I think that if anyone has to get that title, it would be him for me.
Yeah, I guess I'll rip off your answer. Okay. I'll copy off your homework this week and say also him, because I wanted more of him.
Yeah,
and I didn't get it.
At one point, he tells you that you look like a lost puppy, and then says, "Go home, puppy," and that's good.
Yeah, it's great. Sorry, Scruffman. That's just the way it works sometimes.
They even hinted at like the fact that he's got this crush on Glory, and that doesn't go anywhere. That's nothing. I guess we'll see in Puzzle Agent 2 if it develops.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe they got some big plans for him, so they held off in this episode. They exercised restraint.
Ooh, okay. I like that. That.
A little intrigue.
What is your golden moment? Your favorite moment in the game?
Favorite moment in the game? I think just the ending. Like I kind of ragged on it earlier, saying the puzzles were pretty easy. But at the same time, each time I did one, I was like, yes, I solved that, and I am on my way to finding Isaac. And it's kind of the one part of the game where it feels like there's tension to it. Like it feels like an exciting moment. It's the climax of the story. In a story that's mostly pretty low-key. Oh, no, you know what? I'm not going to say. I'm going to do a last-minute switch.
Okay.
My golden moment is the part with Glory and the chainsaw and trying to kill you.
Okay.
I felt like that was... Even though there's some logistical problems there, I felt like that's the part where I was like, oh, why is Glory trying to do this to me? Oh, I gotta get out of here fast by doing this puzzle.
Yeah. But then you can take as much time as you want on the puzzle. It's not time.
Yeah, But I feel like the intrigue was there. I was wondering what was going on with Glory. I wanted to know what her story was beyond what we've seen. That's probably the part of the episode that got me the most interested in seeing where things go. So that's why the sinking building in the ice is my golden moment.
That's fun. I wonder. There's a time in Monkey Island 1 where you get tied to a rock and you get thrown in the ocean. And Guybrush Threepwood can just hold his breath for a really long time, so you can just continue not worrying about timing stuff in this section. But if you wait a full 10 minutes without solving a very easy puzzle that gets you out of the water, you will actually die of suffocation. And drown. In Monkey Island, a game where you can't die any other way. That's just like the one thing that they threw it in as a joke because the idea that you die there is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. I wonder if you wait 10 minutes on that puzzle in the ice in this game, maybe they should just kill you. If you spend a full
you didn't do this
time.
Easy puzzle fast enough. We gave this one to you, so you kind of
you are sinking in the ice, so think about it. Have some urgency.
They shame you for taking so long. Come on.
Where's your sense of immersion? You're sinking.
You're the bad guy in this situation.
My golden moment is the first time a gnome interferes with your puzzle.
That was like a spooky jump scare. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Because these puzzles, up to this point, you've done maybe 15 of them by now. Maybe a little more than that even. And they've been treated as these walled gardens where you can play around with the space of the puzzle. There's never been a time limit. There's never been, anything moving even. There's just been the puzzle, and then you solve it, and then come back to the real world.
Right.
And then this one time in the hotel with Ma, her stovepipe breaks. It's clearly broken by the hidden people. And one part of it, as you're trying to put together the puzzle, is 10 seconds into working with the puzzle, a gnome comes in and steals one of the tiles of the puzzle. And the idea, this is the first time you've ever seen a gnome. Actually, this is the first time anything ever happens with your puzzle. It goes dark and comes back. It's legitimately very scary. And it's about as scary as these funny little drawings of gnomes can be.
It's perfectly timed. It's timed just long enough where you can kind of start thinking about the puzzle. You're like, okay, so I kind of get it. Okay, let's do, and then a gnome.
Yeah, it's like one of those old puzzles where the one of those you played those where you were just following a line around a screen, and then suddenly it's a jump scare screaming at you. They try to get you invested in the puzzle of the screen, so that when the screen changes at all, it's startling. That was probably my golden moment.
That's a very good answer. I like that they do that again to you later, and it still got me. I wasn't like, oh, the gnomes again. When the puzzles started acting up the second time, I was still like, oh, what's going on? A gnome.
Oh no, a gnome. Why me? I don't want to get gnomed.
Not again.
And then a third time they invert it. They've done it to you twice where a gnome comes in and tries to steal some stuff. But now they're inverting it at the very last puzzle of the game with Hydraulic Headache. One of those directions that you can make the things go in falls out of the machine just on its own will. A gnome doesn't do it. But then a gnome comes and helps you by throwing the button back up to you. So it's an opposite.
That's another good mystery, too. Why do these gnomes want to help you?
Well, it turns out at the end of the episode that when you come to rescue Isaac Davner, you say, Isaac, I've saved you. You're safe. You can leave. And then Isaac says, why? And then all of the gnomes come into the room that you just opened. So maybe Isaac was hiding from the gnomes. And the gnomes wanted you to get to Isaac, so they helped you.
That's right. That's very true. It flips it on its head. It keeps you thinking.
There was also a good scene in that end bit where you have a gun that you've had the whole time. You've never shot anything with it the whole game. But now there's a bunch of gnomes trying to steal Isaac Davner, so now's as good of a time as any to use your gun. And you shoot the gnomes a bunch. And then it just shows the gnomes, and they all caught the bullets in their mouth, and they just spit the bullets out.
They're fast-moving gnomes.
Yeah. That was almost a golden moment, just gnomes spitting bullets out. That's great. That's mine.
I'm glad we had some really good golden moments. We had some good moments all throughout this episode.
Yeah, well, this has been Nelson Tethers Puzzle Agent by Telltale Games.
Mitch, I had a great time with this one.
I had a great time with
I guess
it too.
I guess I didn't know what to expect going into it, but it was one of those games where I was always like, "Oh, I should go back and play that." It looked neat. I always liked the style, and now I'm glad I finally did.
Yeah, I think Puzzle Agent 2 is the game that I have most looked forward to playing on this podcast so far.
Wow.
Because while I really wanted to do the podcast on Strong Bad so we could talk about Homestar, I had played that already. And at this point, I just want to see how this Puzzle Agent thing goes. I want to see the story unfold.
I'm really looking forward to it. I like that we're both going in with fresh eyes.
Well, if you subscribe to the podcast, you'll be given a notification when we do that episode. It'll be next week.
You hear that? You hear that, guys? You can subscribe.
You hear that, dummies?
Get on it.
Get to our episode, you friends.
Yeah, we can't baby you your whole life.
You weirdos, you freaks.
Wow, I feel like the longer this goes, the meaner we're gonna become.
And if any of you deviants want to review us on iTunes,
you absolute freaks,
you absolute loonies, I will read your review on the show, unless you don't want to have it be read. But if you do want it to be read, I will read it on the show, good or bad. We'll take it. We'll take it on the chin.
Yeah, don't feel like you have to suck up to us, even if you have all the reason to.
Yeah.
I know we have lots of gold we can give you, but don't feel like you have to only say nice things.
So our collection of gold in mind, we'll see you next week.
So long, goodbye.